Hi, welcome to Impact. I am Richa Khandelwal Bhatt.
Hi, and I am Greg Adela.
And we are back with another great show of Impact. This is the first show of the second season.
Yeah, it's very exciting. The first season was great, went by really fast. We've got some great guests lined up
Right.
for everybody out there.
Yeah, and the first guest today is Philip Morris, bringing in Don Rittner, who is the Schenectady Film Commissioner.
Yes, and historian of film. Very instrumental in getting some productions here to the Capital District. So we're excited to hear what he and Philip Morris have to talk about.
That's right.
Welcome to Impact's Art Segment. This is Philip Morris, CEO of Proctors. I'm your interviewer, and today our guest is Don Rittner, County Historian for the County of Schenectady. Don, welcome.
Thank you.
So you're kind of like, even with your hat, you're sort of the history detective of Schenectady County.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. In fact, we're working on a show that's going to be similar to the History Detective that's on PBS. We're trying to develop a local show to go out and explore sort of all the local history mysteries.
Oh, good. We showed on OSM, I hope.
Well, yes, I hope so. We'll premiere it here.
So what's your most recent discovery?
Well, a couple of years ago, we found the first railroad tunnel in America, which was built in Schenectady, and it goes through the stockade. And most people didn't know that. And this was for the second railroad in America, really. It was called the Schenectady and Saratoga Railroad. And they had built this sort of 15-foot wide, well, 25-foot wide, 15-foot trench through the city, through the stockade, put a top on it. And this became the second railroad in America.
So the railroad was built underground to begin with. It was a subway to begin with.
It was a subway, right. So what they did is they built this trench, basically, laid down the tracks, which were wooden tracks. And then the cars, which were really modified stagecoaches, were taken over through this tunnel by horseback over the Washington Avenue Bridge, which at the time was a covered bridge, to Scotia. And then there was a little steam engine waiting for it. And then it would hook up and take people up to Boston Spa and then up to Saratoga.
So it was a passenger.
Yeah.
It really was a subway.
Oh, yeah. And the first, in fact, New York State had the first successful passenger railroad in America. It was called the Mohawk and Hudson. That was in 1831 from Albany to Schenectady.
So how'd you find this underground
Well,
subway?
a lot of research, looking through old maps, but the old real archaeological way was you go out and you start probing. And when you stand in this particular spot, it's really spongy. So you can tell it's fill. It's not solid ground. And taking that into consideration, looking at the maps, doing the research, trying to figure out where it went, I put a probe down there. I thought I hit something hard. And then I had a small excavator come in with a little backhoe, and we dug down and went 7 feet down, and I landed right on top of the tunnel. I mean, it couldn't have been any better than that. And then we went 25 feet over, went down. Sure enough, there was the other wall. So we found both walls. And I mean, we can't go all the way down because it's 15 feet deep, the tunnel itself, and then it's 7 feet of debris on top of it. So that's 22 feet. You can't really go down until you come up with a plan and make sure, you have retaining walls and stuff like that so it doesn't cave in on people. But I know the original tracks are down there.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and people don't realize Schenectady was the birthplace of American railroading. You wouldn't know that today, but you had the Mohawk and Hudson, you had the Schenectady and Saratoga, Schenectady and Duanesburg, Utica and Schenectady, Troy and Schenectady, it goes on. And so, today Chicago's the hub of railroading, but in the 19th century, the beginning of railroading, it was Schenectady.
Our program is about impact. So talk about how this history, this dead stuff underground, has an impact. Who does it impact? How? Why?
Well, everybody loves history. I mean, that's why you have 3 history channels on cable. 250 history books are published every year. Heritage tourism is the #1 industry in America. And heritage tourists spend more money than the average tourist. They stay an extra day. They spend anywhere from $30 to $600 more than the average tourist. And heritage tourists are a real, quite a dedicated lot, especially Civil War buffs, train buffs. If you put a train exhibit or a Civil War exhibit anywhere in the country, thousands of people go to it. And that's just 2 little subjects. Now, you look at Schenectady, it's a 400-year-old city. We have 4 centuries of history, from the early interactions of the Dutch and the Native Americans, the early development of Schenectady was the manufacturer of brooms. It was the broom capital of the world in the early 19th century. And they made boats, the famous Schenectady boat. So And Schenectady geographically is located, it's called the gateway to the West for a reason. There's a mountain range from Canada to Alabama. The only natural opening is the Mohawk River Valley. So anyone during the 17th and the 19th century that wanted to go west came to Schenectady and through Mohawk. Yeah, I mean, there's records in one day of 600 wagons coming through Schenectady on the way to west. So you have this, you have the city that's got 4 centuries, and we don't even talk about the industrial history, you know, with GE and Westinghouse and American Locomotive. We have this tremendous amount of history, and when you look at the impact of that history on the world, so it's not just locally, you look at the impact of Elco, 75,000, you know, steam engines, and that company closed in '69. There's still Elco engines around the world hauling freight 40 years later. GE, you know, it just goes on and on and on.
Well, I often look at the state of New York, and even though the Finger Lakes are going north-south, all of human migration is clearly east to west.
That's
from
right.
the trains to the Mohawk to the highway now, the throughway, Route 5, Route 20,
Exactly.
all this
because
stuff
it's the natural break
comes
in this, you know, 300-mile mountain range. So again, Schenectady was ideally located, you know.
So what's your next project? I hear you're doing a dig up near my house pretty soon in Rotterdam.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of early Native American history that has not been really looked at in the Capital District, and particularly the Mohawk Valley. Much of the early archaeology was done in the Hudson Valley with Bill Ritchie and Bob Funk, who was a state archaeologist back in the 40s and 50s. And Vince Schaefer, who was the father of, well, he was the father of a lot of things, but I mean, he created, you know, the hiking clubs and archaeological societies, but he was the founder and creator of cloud seeding. He worked for GE back in the 40s. He was a mentor of mine in college. But Vince was also an amateur archaeologist, and for 80 years, he went up and down the Mohawk, you know, looking for Native American sites and found a ton of them. And then where you guys live, up in the Skimmerhorn Road area up in Rotterdam, there's seems to be a real concentration of Native American sites, and so and there's one, a very large one in particular, which is probably a village. So that's what we want to do this coming.
Yeah, you had
this
mentioned it
coming
might
year.
even have
and
been
even in where you are,
a hub,
yeah.
a
Well, again,
longhouse.
well, again, geographically, when you look, it's the Hudson. You know, this Mohawk goes into the Hudson. In your area, the neck of the woods, you can get when you up in the hill there, you can get a 20-30 mile view. So ideally,
well, I
it's
have
a great
friends that
place
are all
to
the
live.
way up the hill in Princetown, and they can see all 3 mountain ranges:
Yeah,
Catskills,
exactly.
Adirondacks,
Yeah.
and Berkshire.
So again, you know, if you're a Native American group living there, you want to have security, and to have security in those days, you need to be able to see where your enemy might be coming. So that area is particularly good for settlement, and it seems to have been a lot of settlement there. So I want to excavate some sites there. There's a tavern site, which DeWitt Clinton stayed at, governor. Then there's 2 or 3 prehistoric sites. There's probably a big village site. And then there's a fort. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
You're a prolific writer. You've written 30 books? More than that?
35, but who's counting?
Who's counting? Do you have one coming?
Yeah, I got another one on Troy coming out in the spring. It's called Legendary Heroes of Troy. And I'm going to do one for Schenectady. It's a new series by Arcadia, and what they're doing is featuring people in a particular city which have made impacts, and that's what we're talking about. And this one in Troy is about 120 bios, short bios of people that have made these, you know,
Oh, that's
tremendous
really cool.
in
That's
Troy.
really interesting.
And I'm going to do Schenectady, do Albany. So that's, and I just finished Vince Schaefer's autobiography, edited that, added photos.
Yeah, he's an
That's
amazing
gonna come
man.
out. Amazing man. I learned so much.
I've
from
seen
him.
his windows that he cut from stone and made
Oh,
into
yeah,
windows.
yeah.
They're
But he did
absolutely
everything.
unbelievable.
Like I said, he did everything.
Yeah,
He was
truly Renaissance
Yeah, a real
person.
Renaissance man. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. So this book is coming out in the spring?
It'll be out in the spring, and I'm working on a Schenectady one now. I'm actually working on a couple more Schenectady books.
What's next? What else is there coming? Sneak into the future, Mr. Historian.
Well, we have more movies coming. We've got 2 more movies coming to Schenectady. There's a proposal now in to create a major motion picture studio in Troy. That's in the works. Let's see.
Is being the head of the film commission fun?
Which, well, you're on. It isn't it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot to do. There's a lot to do in terms of getting the big, the real big movies in here. But the one that just was here was had a tremendous impact. They dropped about $2 million in the local economy.
Well, Don, you do a great job. Thank you very much for joining us.
So do you.
We're definitely going to bring you back. Don Rittner, County Historian for the County of Schenectady. Thank you very much for joining us on Philip Morris at Impact.
So that was a great interview between Don Rittner and Philip Morris. What do we have up next?
Coming up next, we have Heidi Phillipson. Heidi Phillipson is going to be interviewing a young actress named Sophie Meisner, who has a role in Heidi's production of Her Telling Heart.
That's great. So let's look out for that.